Hello and welcome to episode number 72 of Daily Global Insights. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Joining me is Sridhar Tityalaji. A very happy Sankranti to every one of you. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar, happy Shankarantri, happy Lori, happy Pongal, and happy festivity day today.
Yes, indeed. And today is also the beginning of Uttarayanam, and a lot of think of it like a new beginning. And hopefully, 2021 dawns better than 2020 did. We will see how that plays out in the course of weeks and months. First off, Sridharji, what is the latest on impeachment 2.0? Yesterday, the House did vote for impeachment, and the interesting thing I noticed was that there were 10 Republican congressmen slash women who voted for impeachment. Looks like this is being led by Dick Cheney's daughter, Liz Cheney. And does this mean officially that there could be a split in the Republican Party, sir?
Well, I think first and foremost, yes, President Trump was impeached yesterday. It's one of the most amazing in the history of impeachments ever conducted. Decision was made, conclusions were drawn. There was no debate, there was no discussion. Brief statements were made. Conclusions were drawn that he is too dangerous to be a president, and yet there was no precedent, anything to indicate that there's no danger. I'm here stating quite candidly my personal opinion, in terms of the precedents here. So anyway, so I think they went through the process and they had determined, they had issued an ultimatum. 25th Amendment was not accepted, and then they said, okay, we'll hold our impeachment hearings. In less than half a day, the hearings had no evidence except perceived statement. And 222, it's Democrats and 10 Republicans, making it 232. And I think it's
197. 197.
197, and 5 abstained on the Republican side. On the Republican side, yes, there was a bunch of people from the Republican side, led by Liz Cheney, who said the president, it deserves an impeachment. So immediately the left-wing press said, "Oh, it's a bipartisan impeachment," right? So there was a bipartisan. If 10 is a bipartisan impeachment, then I don't know what 100 would be. But never mind. Setting that aside, the impeachment was done, and knowing fully well that the impeachment now is reliant on the Senate to process, vote, and conduct a trial for conviction. And there is no time window available. Mitch McConnell came back and said, the earliest that I can take it up is only after the president leaves, which is President Biden leaves. And, President Biden takes office. What am I saying? President Biden takes office and Trump leaves. So Arkansas Senator Mr. Tom Cotton has raised an issue, which is to say, you only impeach sitting presidents and then you get him out of the office. You're not going to impeach private citizens. That means there is, we are opening up a whole gamut of issues, and the law and constitution is very clear and specific. So where this is heading after this particular step is a very interesting point. Nancy Pelosi was asked to comment after this by the press, and she refused to comment, and she basically said, impeachment is done. Now it is going to Senate. It's up to the Senate to act on it.
I can tell you, sir, that should the Republicans get back the majority in 2024, an act to impeach whoever is the president at that time will be very high on their list of agenda. I think this is going to be a tit for tat response, and it will be a waste of taxpayer money if should that happen. This is really, really sad the way politics in the United States is sinking, but then I'm just an average citizen expressing my thoughts. Let's move on to the next set of things. Here, what we have is now.
Well, they have conducted a poll. The CBS has conducted a poll. 80% of the people, Republicans, don't agree with this impeachment. Okay, this is CBS, by the way. Okay.
Yes, yes.
This is not Epoch Times or Newsmax or even Fox, which has turned center left rather than center right. So this is CBS. So therefore, the very well-worthy left-wing people should be satisfied that it is CBS, and they said 80%. And then again, John McLaughlin has conducted a poll. Over 73% of the Republicans went on to say they are unlikely to vote for those people, who voted for impeachment. So clearly, these 10 people who are sitting to answer to your first question when you framed it, I have a feeling that they're going to have people challenging their nomination as a first step, eventually they being displaced by people who are with the conservative values and move forward. And so that's very much is looming on the cards.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that we used to have this thing called the Tea Party movement, taxed enough already. That was the T. TEA stands for tax enough already. That movement suddenly seems to have petered out in the Republican camp after Trump came to power. This is off script here, I'm going, but what are your thoughts, sir? Where do those guys stand?
Well, I think they generally were pro-market sentiments because at that point of time when Obama came in, lots of things were going on which they were totally against. The Main Street was going after the Wall Street as the single source of culprits and not recognizing that, the whole thing. Look, the mortgage crisis is not one way. There's a lot of beneficiaries, who are on the retail side. So the Tea Party was around the whole economic kind of flavor, and they said we oppose the kind of steps being taken. Much of those regime has just dissipated because of the pro-market-based business architecture and policies that came under, Trump. Basically the pro-business, less taxes, more small business focused, more flavor for those types of programs. Bond market has had historical challenges, but they agree that the interest rates cannot be hiked in an environment where you have less than 2% inflation. You really need an instrument, a monetary instrument to ensure that the economy is sustained. So that proved to be, in hindsight, a right decision. The only period, if you can see, I think we discussed it in one of the sessions, is 2019 when they attempted to hike the 2018-19, when they attempted to hike the rates, the market reacted adversely. That's 1 year the market was down, and then it was back up again during this 4 years of president's tenure. So I think the Tea Party, to answer to your question, they seem satisfied and they gone kind of mainstream integrated into the Trump regiment.
Thank you for that update, sir. So let's take a look at events around the United States. Trump has clearly told his supporters no violence, no law breaking, and no vandalism. And there seems to be some interesting revelations that are coming out, especially the Gateway Pundit story saying that now it looks like the violence for January 6th was planned a lot earlier. We'll talk more about it probably maybe tomorrow, but you can see that this is not something that was instantaneous response.
Well, it could not have been because all of these guys who came that day, could not have come in to climb the walls, etc. But as you rightly said, we'll give a separate attention to this specific topic. Since you have raised that point, we will also cover tomorrow's Jack Dorsey's Nirvana. As I have always said, you have to feel the pain in the belly for your brain to resonate, right? So you feel the pain when many of the left writers don't feel the pain, so they can write anything and they can advocate anything that they please, because the reason is everything is done by the government. Whereas in the case of Twitter, if it does such a certain actions, is stock tanks, investors run. As you have seen in the case of President Trump. President Trump's action resulted in many state, local governments canceling his contracts with his business. Many sponsors or funders basically backing out, corporate sponsorship moving out. So therefore, I think that there is a calibration model here. So we'll discuss that again, what his statement is and why suddenly he has changed his tune.
Yes, indeed. And Liz Cheney, now there is pressure building. Jim Jordan has called for the House GOP vote to remove Liz Cheney as a conference chair. So this is going to have blowback within the party also, isn't it?
Well, I think that there's a consolidation that is going on within the party. I think that's what you're going to witness, which is namely, it's not out of context that there were 74 million people who voted for President Trump. Okay, however much some of his actions may be justifiable, unjustifiable, however much some of his actions may be justifiable, unjustifiable in by way of his tweets. Sometimes, he has a tendency as well to overshoot his mouth. But the story is you don't change the positions based on those, but more look at everything. This is what we call look at data, look at the policies. And the policies, we have a very clear three-tier government, House and Senate, and then the executive, and then if it is incorrect, the judicial branch to validate it. So by and large, the policies of President Trump, notwithstanding his utterances, has towed the line of the House and Senate. Of course, you can assume that there will not be a bipartisan. It is partisan, be it on census, be it on stimulus, be it on many facets, you will see. But at the end of the day, you toe the line. So to your point, there is definitely a movement, just as there's a movement emerging on the Democratic side, which we should say, to ban or to put them on no-fly list because they could be a danger to the fellow passengers. They should be on no-fly list. So at least 3 members have been listed and leading that list is Ron Paul and Josh Hawley. These are 2 guys who say these guys should be in no-fly list. They pose imminent and clear danger to fellow passengers, so they should not be.
Sounds a little ridiculous, but then that's what you have voted, and that's what we have to live with for the next 4 years. So let's move on quickly. US declassifies Asia strategy, showing Trump administration sought allies to contain China. Let's just quickly move on to the global things that we can touch on that because it leads to my next question. Also, I just want to tell our viewers that Obama era veteran Kurt Campbell is going to be heading Biden's Asia policy. This is sounding more and more like Obama 2.0. It's all being orchestrated from behind the scenes by Mr. Obama. Biden seems to be a figurehead. That's how I see it. I could be wrong. Unless the Democrats can prove me wrong, I'm going to stick to my statement. I don't know what you're thinking, sir. I'll let you respond to that.
No, same. I think that it is, and if people don't know, I'm one of the Global Security Council members of the Carnegie Foundation. The former CEO of Carnegie Foundation is Bill Burns or William Burns. William Burns will now be heading the CIA. So he's a career diplomat. He was assistant secretary. He was the one who did he did the nuclear deal between U.S. India. So this gentleman is one of the fine diplomats. But the story is that is another Obama appointee. So it's very much an Obama team. And I tend to agree with you that effectively what we are seeing is Obama policy 3. With regard to Asia, Asia is in a fine spot with all the policies put together by Trump. So he is really getting a cakewalk as far as Asia is concerned.
US has broken new ground to build a new embassy in India. Can you share a little bit more thoughts? Is it still going to be in Chanakyapuri area?
Yeah. So I think that I don't think I can comment on which specific area, but I think they're trying to beef up the security after some incidents that occurred in the embassy. They're also expanding the footprint. So I think that's where the new embassy is going to be. It's also expanding as the trade and business has expanded and the strategic. So they feel that its time has come for them to expand, not only expand the footprint, but also the security apparatus around the embassy.
Let's take a look at a global update now. Rafael Grossi, the IAEA person, has said that the renegotiation of the Iran nuclear deal is out of the question because now more and more people are finding out that Iran is probably closer to building nuclear weapons than ever before. So now, those of us, including myself at 1.23 years ago, was questioning Trump for reneging a sovereign agreement between country to country. Now, all of a sudden, we see that Iran has been enriching uranium all along, and that's valid grounds for Trump to have broken the Iran Accord. Any thoughts on that, sir?
No, I endorse the sentiments. I think Trump got it right. There are three essential things that we have spoken about. One, the presence of Al Qaeda in Iran. Number two is the continued enrichment of uranium. Number two. Number three is now the new news, which always Israel and US has suspected, which is the creation of the nuclear weapons. And fourth, if I have to add, they have also found some tunnels and underground bunkers for launching surface to air type of missiles. So the story is that Iran is a very big story, and I think Trump has got it right.
Japan and India defense chiefs have voiced solidarity on maritime status quo. Now you are seeing that the quad pieces that were planned and put together, things are beginning to start taking shape and moving there, isn't it?
While rest of the world thinks that they have to toe the line of Biden and what Biden is thinking, clearly the Quad states, especially Australia, Japan, and India, more specifically Japan and India, which is leading that effort, have made it very clear to the incoming Mr. Biden, we are not going to toe your line as far as combating China is concerned. So the Quad strategy is in place, or whether you want to call it Quad, whether you want to call it Indo-Pacific, we are in place. That is in place. Britain and Germany and France had towed the line. Whether they'll continue to do so, we will know shortly. But as far as the actual Quad is concerned, that seems to be in place. Quad minus one. What US does remains to be seen.
Yes, indeed. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, we will be encouraging United States to do the right thing. These are inter-country agreements one more time. And we'll hope for the best. We don't have to take a call right now. An Indian Army is now getting made in India drones for Ladakh. That's a new development.
Well, I think that defense has been identified and established by the Modi government as one of the sectors in which they will bring in the capital. 51% was the original. I think they increased it to close to 70% or greater, if my numbers are correct, in terms of the capital coming in. The capital is coming in with know-how, so the Indian capabilities, particularly on the engineering side, can be leveraged. So they are starting to produce everything, including, the guns, besides these BrahMos missiles. They have also placed an order for, I think, 87 or 100 more, the Tejas, light combat jets. And then you have got the drones, clearly sending a message that India is going to be a big domestic manufacturer and exporter. It is starting to export to the southeast, the South China Sea countries, as well as to the nearby, the Russian kind of republics, the technologies. But most important feature of all this is that India is ready to combat China. It's all revolved around China. So it's effectively everything encircles Ladakh. So they're not going to repeat. So they feel that they're not going to be reliant on anybody in the world, that they have all the capabilities within the Indian ecosystem.
India's real GDP, it is set to expand 11.1% after a 7.75% contraction in 2021. I think the fiscal year in India is starting to get moved up. I could be wrong about this, but I think it is no longer April, or they're trying to read the budget at least on 28th of February. So that is coming up soon. So we will know more about this. So any insights on how this expansion is going to come about?
The expansion is coming out from three. One is the pent-up demand, which has built in. So you will see the harmonization in outer years. I think it goes back to some 8 or 8.6% for the following year. So 11.1% is driven by pent-up demand, as well as tremendous investments that have come in into kind of various sectors. Also the export, in two factors, the medical, the pharma exports, it could be a big number, factoring in. So exports is one. The agricultural growth, which typically hangs around 3.5 to 4 or 4.5%. If I remember the number correctly, is around, they're expecting about 14.5 or 15% growth next year. So there's a combination of drivers which is helping this big momentum in the economic, in the GDP output.
Let's take a look at COVID. We have not touched upon it for the last couple of days. Now, the COVID cases in the world is about 92.6 million, 1.9 million dead, and 66 million have recovered, and 24.5 million still active. And we are now seeing, like I predicted yesterday, that there are new strains of COVID are showing up in Ohio now. So we talked about this 2 days ago, sir. Maybe you can touch upon a general coverage of COVID. We're also having vaccines. Johnson & Johnson has come out with a single shot vaccine that has not been FDA approved yet. So there's a lot of stuff to cover on COVID. So please update us on where things stand.
Where things stand, I think the COVID is, the vaccination programs have commenced. Every country in the world more or less has decided what the source of, what type of vaccine it would be initially going with. They have some initial results based on the tests. Many countries have also imposed lockdowns. They have seen rising cases, but there is a general feeling that this can be combated with a combination of vaccine, lockdowns, and flexibility to change the vaccines as the vaccine production shoots up. The silver lining here is that India is going to be the second largest producer of vaccines in 2021 and second only to United States. So which implies that a lot of the vaccines are going to be also for export purposes besides the domestic consumption. But these new variant viruses, new categories of viruses are now beginning to come out. There's a report that from one of the doctors which basically states that we probably have to live with this for maybe a few years. It's just not going to dissipate. We also have to report on the COVID that the team from WHO has landed in China. Two of them were sent back or quarantined and may have to go back because they tested positive for COVID when they landed in China.
So this is again the thing, one can never say that this is all done and eradicated. There's always some strain, some surprise. In fact, even testing, we've noticed that people who left United Kingdom as COVID negative, and when they landed in India and they are retested, suddenly they turn out to be COVID positive. So these could be the testing procedures that are being adopted. Those could be different. It could be different strains. So there is a bit of a settling down time that is needed before things start becoming more normal. United States has crossed 30 million individuals now who have been vaccinated. And I think these are primarily Pfizer and AstraZeneca, with perhaps now Johnson & Johnson will probably take front stage because it's a very compelling alternative. If you just have to take one shot, why would you not take that up, isn't it?
Yeah. Moderna has been also approved for contingent use in the United States. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Moderna
right. Lastly, let's take a look at markets.
US is going to accelerate. They just on the Biden asked the guy to Azar to step down and for the new guy to take over. It's always kind of the political spectrum to accelerate or relook or revisit, etc. So I think that in the United States will get its act together. Now everywhere we are getting reports that vaccine is available, for you to kind of enroll yourself for the program.
So let's take a look at the market, sir. The United States budget again has hit a record deficit of 144 billion last month. And this is driven up mostly by COVID-19 spending and dole benefits. And I think it is going to shoot up even more because Biden has promised that he will have his own round of stimulus, isn't it?
Yes, he does. So I think the expenses was around 490 billion and the taxes revenue was around 360 billion. So the stories are 344 billion. So there was that made that 143, 46 that made the 144 number. predominantly for two reasons. One is the COVID program stimulus, and the second is the extension of the unemployment benefits. We had already indicated that the budget we started was 4.14 trillion as expenses, with about 3.75 trillion as the revenue, with about 500 billion as the 560 billion as the deficit. But now we are well past. We had a 2.1 trillion initial stimulus. We covered that separately. Then we have 900 billion stimulus that has kind of kicked in right now, and more to come. So the story is that it is a significant number, and US being the base currency, they can either print notes or there are ready buyers. But this is going to be added to the total debt. With the interest rates being low, they're able to service it. Only when interest rates go up, it'll pose an interesting kind of fiscal risk in terms of the costs and the deficit will even blow out further.
Well, inflation has been also very low right now, and that kind of helps the whole story along. Sridharji, and I think that's a wrap for us now. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same channels. And thanks for joining. Please subscribe to our channel. Please donate to our channel. It's been my pleasure to have Sridharji come up to the 75th episode tomorrow. We'll be talking a lot of new things that have not been covered before. So stay tuned, join us, support us, and namaskar.
Namaskar and have a wonderful day.